Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I surely appreciate your support, appreciate you tuning in. Like I always say, guys, I build these videos for like-minded folks just like you and I to help us all get to the finish line quicker, but not only quicker, but safer and more efficient and in a better punctual way. So hopefully these videos here, guys, help everyone do just that. Today, we are on the farm here in Kentucky. We are going to be starting some doe bedding work that we have kind of brought to your attention before. This is video 2 or episode 2, season 1, episode 2 of Built by Whitetails. We are on the farm, guys. Going to be getting this old chainsaw fired up here. Come along with us. I think you'll enjoy today's video as we start making some progress here on the doe bedding. So here we are, guys, episode 2 of the Built by Whitetail series. A more hands-on, direct approach instead of having to go through food plot videos, strategy videos, stuff like that. If you're just tuning in to the reason behind the Built by Whitetail segments that we're doing, there's a lot of things coming from the Built by Whitetails portions, guys. But what we're doing is we're just separating this, highlighting this on its own playlist here throughout, right inside the channel. It's just separate, so you don't have to go through all the other videos to try to find these. So welcome to episode 2 of Built by Whitetails. So the first step is, guys, we are going in and extracting. We're going to start with about 30% of the cedar. You can see the cedar here behind me, guys. In this area, I do have some stuff to work with. Some oak and some bur oak in here. I've got some maple. I've got some ironwood, stuff like that. But this stuff does no good if the sunlight can't get to it and the deer can't feed from it because it's choked off by cedar. This area here is a little bit smaller cedar, kind of more of a maybe a post size, if you will, fence post stuff. As we get down to the end, right off the transition here, guys, so we're building right off the side of the transition here, we're building the doe bedding up above it, between here and the food plot. This section, the next section of it in the other corridor, or the other cubicle, I'm sorry, actually has some saw size, some 6, no, I shouldn't even say 6, they're probably 10, 12 plus right on that side. So we're going to start the process. A couple of things here to point out, guys, is what I do. What I'm doing is I always come in and mark the trees, obviously, that I want, paint them out. It's all laid out before I start the chainsaw, like we always talk. This right here, guys, is one of the tips I'd like to share with you. What I do is I take the paint can and I after the transition is, build and where exactly that doe bedding lays in, I always come through here and I mark each end of the doe bedding. So in other words, from here up to the food plot is where this is going to start. So there's no bedding potential, no hinge cuts or anything like that from here to the stand. We're about 50 yards from the stand down here. And so it's going to start here and go that way. I started doing this a couple years ago, guys, is anything that you can lay out with the paint ahead of time, it just seems, maybe it's a visual thing, right? But it just goes quicker. So I've got the majority of the trees already marked that are going to come out. We're going to start, like I said, we're going to start with about 20-30%, see where we're at, and see how much of this stuff we can expose. Then what we're going to do is we are then going to go in the next step. So probably episode 3 is going to go in and actually start pulling these out, getting them out, so you can really see how much more of this type of stuff here that we exposed got the cedars out, and what are we going to do with the cedars. That's going to be the step 3 deal. We are going to leave some of the tops in here, but because I'm using them for post, and my neighbor's got a sawmill and stuff like that, guys, we're going to get them out of here, because the deal is with those cedars, if you leave them on the ground and if you have to come in and burn, or you're going to burn your bedding areas once every 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case is, depending on where you're at and across the country. So if we were to just leave all those cedars on the ground, tops, logs, everything, guys, it puts way too much congestion on the ground. And if you do burn, or you try to maintain that for years to come, guys, that cedar will be here for 20 years. It just does not go away. It doesn't rot. easy. Hence it's the reason that we build a lot of stuff with it. But it just doesn't go away. And what happens is, guys, is then when it gets thicker in these bedding areas that we're trying to promote, what happens is then you got to wade through all that brush to try to go get it. So I take them out. If you're in an area that has no understory other than that, it's good to leave the tops, kind of, make some rabbit habitat out of them, maybe some structure, some backdrop, some, bedding structure, stuff like that. What we're going to do is we're going to fire up the saw here. I'm going to kind of bring you along as we go, give you kind of a progress report, just so you can see. This is the first section here, so you can see this has got a little bit of light, guys. This is the south, so you can see this southern sun is coming in. So we're letting this, any of those, if that tree, that ash wouldn't have been dead, I'd have been cutting that down, even though it's on that side of the transition, because that southern sky, as we walk down through here, you can just see all of your shade killers, right? You can see in here, southern sky, guys. I kind of do my best here not to flip you around. Southern sky, direct sunlight, where there's no sunlight blocking it. You look behind, and there's some pocketed, some pocket sunlight. Where there's pocketed sunlight, we got some stuff growing other than cedar. Now we slide down here just a little ways, you can see it's shaded. We get down there where that pole timber, or that pole cedar is, she's darker and darker in there, right? So kind of we'll give you an update here, start this one, then I'm going to slide down and we're going to update you on that, show you the first and the final on that, guys. So 10 minutes with the chainsaw. Cubicle 1 cedar extraction is done. I'll show you here, guys. You've seen what it looked like before. Let me flip you around here. Actually, let me flip you around just to show you what little saw work. All of the sun that's let in. I had one on the south side of the transition here that I could tell that was pocketed, are creating a shade pocket, so I cut that down as well. But now you can see all this stuff in here that we exposed, that we'll be able to put some hinges, and it's a more of a diverse bedding area now than it was just choked off with cedar. Now after we get all these drug out, we'll be able to come through and hinge anything in that 2 to 6 inch hardwood that's left. I don't have any popple to extract or anything. So Cubicle 1 cedar extraction done, guys. Let's move on to the next one, and you'll see the vast difference in that one, because here, like I said, there's a little bit of regen underneath because the sun was able to get to it. The next one, there's nothing growing under it because it's all bigger cedar. So we are now on to the second cubicle. So this one here, you always hear of me talking about the cubicles. What is that? And that is the area between your doe bedding corridors, throughout your doe bedding areas that create the cubicles, 20 by 20 yards, 30 by 30 yards, whatever that end up being. I'd like to, take and make them corridors in the bedding areas, especially when we're dealing with larger like doe bedding areas, because we don't want to take a chance of trapping those does in. They got to be able to take 3-4 jumps, get to the outside, get to a trail, whether that be the transition or a corridor, and get out of dodge if predation comes in. So let me spin you around here to show you the difference between this one and what you seen last time. This is all bigger cedars. I mean, we've got a little bit of, you can tell the rootstock is in the ground because we do have some regeneration. You can see moss growing on the ground. Anytime I see moss, that tells me lack of sunlight, right? But you can see in here, guys, these are much bigger cedar. Make beautiful boards for sure. But you can see up through here, guys, it's just a desert, a cedar moss desert. It's great when the weather gets nasty, thermal cover to no end, but throughout the rest of the season, doesn't do good for much of anything as far as bedding, because they only use it when they have to, not when they want to, right? You see how much daylight last one come in with little cedars. You'll really see the difference here, guys, when I pop these out. And like I said, this is one that I might leave a little bit of structure on the ground, because I don't have a hardly anything, to be honest with you, to hinge. So I might leave some of those tops in here for structure, which would be easier to pull the logs out. Then once I do have something to come in and you know, hinge cut 3, 4, 5 years down the road, where I have some stuff to put on the ground and enhance that bedding, this bedding a little bit more, I'll get rid of those tops. I'll lop them down and make more, you know, strategic piles and stuff like that out of them maybe. So one quick tip here, guys, is like we always say, and I think you guys, most folks understand, not to just go in and start chainsawing, right? And here's one of the perfect examples I run into a lot, and I here on the farm, I just wanted to kind of go over it real quick. Is, see, what I do is I start these bedding areas. You know, you're going to have bedding areas that run north and south. You're going to have ones that run east and west. But what I always do, especially ones that run east and west, start on the south side. On the south side, which is the bottom side, so that, which is this side behind me here. Start there, because you can perforate. You can pick and choose which ones you want to cut to perforate that canopy, whether that's hardwood or like we're doing here, cedar. If you go to the top and you do it, a lot of times, one, you don't have a spot to fell the trees into, right? You got to make a hole and then just kind of keep putting them in those areas. Cedars are not fun, trust me. Cedars are woolly. Littlest branch catches them. They do not want to come down. Be careful with stump jumps on these guys, because they're just so woolly. So one thing to do is, what I've got is, north is about, on the farm here, guys, is about like that. So northeast, a north wind coming across the top of the hill where the food plot is out here, a northeast wind, them cold fronts, you know, them northerly, northeasterly, east, real cold winds that we get sometimes, depending on where you're at in the country, but we get them here. I leave the more of the thermal block, maybe even some of the more mature ones, up at the front to the north, because that'll block that wind coming into it. Then behind it, we have what we're doing here is a cedar extraction. You can see, that's just one tree that I popped out there. You can see the daylight, the difference between what's behind me and right there. But so lay them out, start taking them from the south side when you start cutting. But before you cut, come up on the north side, because you're going to leave these out here by the food plot, right? And you're going to look down to the south, and you're going to be able to see the tops of the canopy, especially if it falls away from you like it does here. So now on a plot that runs, you know, opposite of that, where the matured trees are on the south side of that, you have to cut them first, obviously, because them trees are going to shade your food plot and stuff like that. So this one I've got here is, it's a, you know, the ridge runs pretty much east and west. And so the food plot's at top, ridge runs east and west. The sun is in the southern sky, so I'm actually able to start on the north side, the top side of my doe bedding, and look back, figure out, and they're mature ones. I've already got them marked, but they're the biggest cedars, right? And then lay it out, mark them, and then start cutting them. And it's amazing how much that, you know, that taking that dense canopy, especially with cedars, out of that sky. Now, something to keep in mind is this, guys, and I'll draw this on a whiteboard, or I'll kind of explain this to you. Cedars, the reason cedars are so invasive, as you see, a cedar tree grows like a hardwood tree. It's got a crown, right? It's got a very dense crown, much like a white pine or something like that. That's why they're habitat killers, is because the taller they grow, hardwood and white pine, red cedar, white cedar, any of those like that, guys, grows up and branches out at the top. If you're building these and you have a choice, and you're adding thermal cover to your bedding areas, always go with a spruce. You know, it could be blue spruce, Douglas fir, whatever that is in your area. The reason for that is this: Colorado blue spruce, The reason for that is this: they grow in the opposite. They grow so the tops are actually smaller, the bottoms are bigger. So more vegetation at the bottom, more thermal cover, less shade killer, because they're triangular shape, right? So the other way around is the shade killers that we're just talking about, your hardwood and your you know, white pine, red or red cedar that we're extracting here, has a big brilliant top, right? A big crown. That's why it shades them out, so, or shades the ground out, kills that habitat. So just remember that, guys. If you have a choice, if you're building it, don't put red cedars back in it. Go with a spruce. Go with more of a V'd top, not a crown. But that's just a bed right up here behind us here, right at the base of that cedar there. So they're already wanting to be here, guys. We're just enhancing it, right? But one of the pieces of the puzzle is always remember that. Keep the thermal block. Don't extract all of them. Again, take your more mature cedars out. Leave the thermal block on your dominant wind side to block that wind coming into these doe bedding areas. The goal is this, guys. The goal is to make this doe bedding area usable every day, not just per certain winds, per wind direction. The goal is to have enough side cover, have enough thermal cover in here, have enough browse and food that they're here all the time. They're very predictable. The buck movement past them is going to be very predictable at that point too, guys. So if it's not, if they're here one day and gone the next, you know, it's a chase, right? It becomes a chess match. And what happens is they'll find that correct and, you know, area, or that correct spot that has thermal cover for that day, or different, you know, a different browse count. Next thing you know, that's on your property line. You're getting busted going to your stands. So I always joke about feeding, you know, find out what they want in these areas, feed them caviar, right? I always say, you know, you want this doe bedding area, you want to treat these girls like queens, you have to get the browse, you have to meet the side cover, you have to get this moss off the ground, get sunlight in here, and that's one way to do it. Thermal cover up top, more mature trees left up there to break the wind, so you kind of get a double stage of wind block there. Then go in and perforate that, I'm extracting 30% first, and then I'm going to see, you know, if I need a few more, I'll pull them out and go from there. So the first step is complete, and maybe a few more once we you know, get the equipment in here and do some clearing or get them pulled out. But you can see, guys, half hour with a chainsaw, perforate that canopy, and it's already, you can just tell the rootstock is there. You can just tell they want a bed in there. I found beds in it. I mean, there's some beds in it, but not near what there will be. So the first leg of it's done, guys. The next step, like I said, I'm looking forward to you know, getting the rest of them out, taking some video. Maybe episode 3 will be pulling them out and getting them up out of here. Trying to get some of this done when I'm home, in between client calls and being on the road from January on. You know, obviously it gets crazy. So every minute that I've got to put on my own farm, I try to do that, and just feel blessed this year to be able to bring it to you guys. So as you can tell, guys, and it's 3:30 in the afternoon, you can only imagine what this is going to look like, you know, during that growing daylight, from, you know, around your noon time, full of daylight. So just remember, guys, make it a process. Don't just go in with the saws. Leave that thermal cover stronger to the north. Take more of them out to the south. Let more of that daylight hit the you know, where you want it. You can steer it with some canopy removal. All in all, just be careful, take your time. If you can work in a team, it's always safer, right? So appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Episode 2, closing out on episode 2 here of Built by Whitetails. Thanks, guys.